All right, so as a reminder for those of us that have been here for a while, and for those of you who've been here for maybe not that long, there was a time we didn't have the cone of concern. There was a time that even when we had the cone of concern, it only went 3 days out. But because the 5-day forecast is now as good as the 3-day, we now have a 5-day cone of concern. But just as a reminder, I think sometimes many of us think, oh, this is where the worst weather will be. That's not the case. What we're trying to tell you is this is the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, but typically, especially 3, 4, and 5 days out, there's a lot of ifs in the forecast. And so legitimately, it's almost as likely the hurricane could be here or here. So I just want to keep that in mind. We're going to focus on this forecast, but there's a lot of ifs. And notice how the cone gets wider the farther out because the ifs well, they're larger the farther off into the future, right? Here are we're just showing you the best computer models. And if you've been watching this over the last couple of days, you know that although certainly we call that a spread, anywhere from Tampa to near Apalachicola, that spread is much more focused than it was just about 24 hours ago. Now, of course, we were hoping, nothing against the Panhandle, but we were hoping that that spread might go farther west. It didn't. It's actually come farther to the east. But there is some good news here with us, and we'll talk about that. First of all, remember, and this is unfortunate for our friends on the West Coast, the worst this hurricane has to offer will be over the West Coast, probably somewhere between Tampa and Apalachicola. But you may have seen in the long-term forecast, we see the hurricane, at least the forecast, peak at about a Cat 4 as it's approaching Tampa, but then drops to a Cat 2 and maybe a 1 when it makes landfall. Now, why is that? One of the major reasons why is that as this hurricane heads to the north and intensifies, yes, that means it's bringing in more tropical moisture, but there's a lot of dry air over the deep south. In fact, you may have felt it this weekend. Maybe not chilly, but certainly there were lower dew points. That means drier air. And this drier air, the stronger the hurricane becomes, will actually be drawn in toward it. And what that means is eventually it'll literally start to choke it. Remember, these systems need moisture, warm moisture. Dry air causes evaporation. Evaporation causes cooling. And so literally it would choke the system. Now, I'm not trying to imply that it's going to weaken to where there's nothing left to it, but it could be that it peaks as a 4 and then begins to, I hesitate to say weaken, but it won't be as strong. With all of that said, we really haven't changed our forecast locally. Now, we want you to keep a close watch on the update, but for now, we still think the worst of the weather will be Wednesday through Friday, going downhill Wednesday, improving on Friday, power outages and winds gusting to 60, but our biggest concern will be flooding due to the combination of 6 to 12 inches of rain and tides running above normal, maybe as much as 2 to 3 feet. But for now, a beautiful evening. We're expecting that. Remember, down south, we have a flood warning in effect for the St. Johns down south, and that's because already, because of the new moon, tides are running about a foot above normal. That's one of the problems, one of the reasons we're looking for the potential for flooding to be the big threat later in the week. Heating up tomorrow, still nice on Tuesday, but if you're going to make preparations and get them done, you should do it while the weather is still tranquil. Tuesday is our last tranquil day. Then the rains and winds pick up Wednesday. We think the most dangerous weather will pretty much be Thursday, but starting overnight Wednesday into Thursday and not improving until Friday. I promise, folks, there's going to be updates, so make sure you check in on those adjustments to the forecast.